Oh, money plays day. All right, my fellow Amberlanders, I come here with revolutionary greetings to all of you, and I am happy you are always committed to listening to what we are doing, where our struggle is, and in the future, we will be talking about how we intend to structure our society after the beast must have been removed. It is an interesting times in the history of the world. And you can only have the parallel in the early 30s when tyrants and demagogues took over countries, masking themselves as nationalists and patriots for the voiceless. They rained terror on those who disagreed. They dismantled institutions of checks and balances. They dismantled every other institution that could hold them accountable. They built a cult of followership that ended up destroying countries, and it took billions and billions of dollars and many years to reconstruct. In our backyard in the early 60s, we saw the process of decolonization, and then suddenly the use of Pan-Africanism to mask the rise to power of tyrants who dismantled political opposition, integrated them into a one system oligarchy that for the past more than 60 years has destroyed our economies, dismantled institutions of checks and balances, murdered millions, thrown thousands of others into jail, and has opened the floodgates for millions to escape from the continent. Our struggle is a struggle far bigger than Amazonia itself. It's a struggle for the soul of the people of the continent, for the Black race, and for our people who have gone through a lot of pain, hopelessness, and denigration. My fellow Amazonians, you have started a very difficult journey. And I have always asked you to be prepared. We have all been raised in a society where using shortcuts has been the most assured means of getting to power or opportunities. We have been constructed to be this way. Even when we have the opportunity of using merit as a means of moving ahead, we are not sure. We have been turned into a dependency. And these bullies who have ransacked our societies, who have murdered millions, they have an arrogant sense of entitlement that it will take strong focus on yielding, on bending, on blinking, on compromising leadership to overcome. It is not easy to face a system that you solely depend on for everything. Your right to life, liberty, security, happiness, and opportunity. They have shattered the private sector. The ones that exist depend solely on the regulations that have been put in place by the system. They have established police forces whose sole responsibility and role in society is terror, extortion, harassment, and rape. So if you have not been able to properly quantify the obstacles deliberately placed in front of us, do it. Then you will understand the uphill climb that we have to make just to have our heads above water. We must adopt a long-term approach. Any short-term strategy to undermine an almost half a century entrenched political mafia will be futile. You will get tired, you will get frustrated, and you want to live for the moment. This is a struggle for the next generation to reap the benefit of the foundation which we must lay or peril in oblivion as the generation before us. I come here every time to provide the best of information I can to get you to the point of understanding the requirement of commitment, unwavering commitment to ideals, and not to depend on the short-term material opportunism presented to us by the barbarians. There is an alternative. The systems in place have presented themselves as the only game in town. And you can easily submit to that manipulation because you've never known any other alternative. The alternatives we present are somehow idealistic, they are somehow unnatural, they are somehow totally divorced from the context within which you've grown up. You've never known that you could elect your mayor, that mayor is held accountable, put in jail when they carry out murder, corruption. You've never known that the taxes you pay should be replicated in good roads, good hospitals, free education, care for the old. You've never known that you alone has the power to alter the destiny of your own society. Because every time you have tried, you've either ended up in jail, in exile, or in a permanent residence in the grave. That is what we have become used to. And everyone who has risen to challenge, to alter this situation, has been tagged a radical, an extremist, a chaos producer who wants to undermine the somehow subtle stability that has always worked against your interests and in favor of your oppressor. Someone once asked me, where do I find my inspiration? And I said, I find my inspiration in the fact that there is history that we can learn from. Bigger tyrants have risen. Powerful empires have existed. Demagogues nearly took over the world. In the late 30s, if he was left to Chamberlain, Poland would have been given away to the Nazis. Czechoslovakia would have been handed to the Nazis. It required a Winston Churchill, not only with guns and bombs, but with inspiration to let Europe know there can be an alternative. There can be a challenge, that we can stand against Nazism. When Hitler said, we the white people are privileged, every white person thought they were included in that narrative. And he told them, no, I'm talking about the Aryan race. That's when they realized they were not. When he said, I needed part of the Czech, I needed part of Poland, Chamberlain thought he could satisfy Hitler's appetite for expansionism, for what he called Lebensraum. He never knew that ceding ground 1 inch will end Hitler at Buckingham Palace. My fellow people, look at our continent. Look at us. In the Congo, where all the valuable resources that are required in modern technologies are produced. Look at the lot of the Congolese. Look at our lot, and you ask yourself, if you make it, will it salvage the lot of millions and millions of our people who didn't have a chance? Or if we sacrifice more and create sustainable institutions and create an environment within which we could tap into our innermost capabilities and make a better life for ourselves and lay the foundation for the next generation, if that will alter the destiny of our people. Look at Amazonians. It is less than 1% of Amazonians who have escaped our country. More than 8 million of our people are trapped in uncertainty, held captive by a band of barbarians who have used violence, corruption for the past 60 years to destroy the destiny of an entire generation. And they do so without an iota of remorse. They do so without regrets. They speak to you with so much entitlement because they know the last generation either gave up or integrated. You have emerged as the generation that should lay the foundation of a new generation that will not be subjected either to corruption or violence. My people, I know you look at this endeavor and ask yourself, how are we going to make it? You can only ask this question if there is no roadmap. Before us, there were the Che Guevaras. Before us, there were the Gusmayo. Before us, there were the Mandelas. Countless of iconic figures and individuals whose commitment, whose sacrifices laid the foundation upon which we can build. Countless of peoples who never gave up, even when their land was a desert, they knew as Africans the greatest factor of production that we own is either our labor or our land. In that land is where our memories are buried, where the culture that captures the individual aspect of our being reflected in our identity, in our language, in our food, and everything that makes us unique is embodied. And if you allow your land in the hands of looters, in the hands of barbarians, they make your laws, decide your destiny, alter your lifestyle, dismantle your culture, and this is the worst part. They impose upon you an alien system that robs you of dignity, robs you of identity, and of your sense of being. Without your sense of being, life is useless. And if you ever wonder why we rose, it is to safeguard what makes us unique, is to safeguard the piece of prime real estate that is the only treasure to the Amazonian people. We have never hated anyone who has come to share with us the bounties of nature. We have been a tolerant, uncompromising people who gave refugee status to Cameroonians, who've opened their doors to millions of Biafrans to make investment and do business and find a second home. We have always been accommodating. Our forebears were able to dismantle institutions we built with the hope that they can coexist with Cameroon. Little did they know, these barbarians were so arrogant and so ruthless. I'm not talking about what they did 60 years ago. I'm talking about their conduct today. The language of terror which they spread in our society when they burn homes, when they kill our people. Their arrogance is what keeps me awake. Their sense of lack of remorse is what gives me the spirit never to blink as far as Cameroon is concerned. This is not simply a fight for a homeland. It is a fight to safeguard a series of values that are very, very important for us, not only as Amazonians, but as human beings. No people shall be dispossessed of their land. It is the foundation of their being. Coming in here, I've just read an article of a United Nations official praising Cameroon on its governance records. And this is pathetic. Pathetic. Forget about Amazonia. Would you, as a reasonable individual, refer to a country that has been taken hostage by one man for close to half a century, who has looted the coffers of the state, murdered his political rivals, detained those who could not escape, expelled into exile thousands and thousands of people, and made corruption a relevant instrument of state deprivation? Would you refer to that kind of a country as a system that you are proud of its governance? This should tell you of the obstacles ahead of us. And we must be ready as a people to dismantle every obstacle, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, until Amazonia is free. 2 days ago, I did speak to you a few months ago about the need for Amazonia to regenerate the spirit of internationalization and to reawaken the conscience of humanity across capitals and across the streets of the Western Hemisphere about the plight of the Amazonian people. I did say it was very important that for us who are out in safety in the diaspora, we should not relinquish this fight and leave it in the hands of our forces alone. They like to see us in demonstrations, raising concerns about the brutality of the enemy. They like to see us in conferences, debating, arguing, and even quarreling about the strategies and plans we have for a future Amazonia. They like to see us always raise our flags, sing our anthem across the world in solidarity with their pain, their plight at home. And I did state to you this year, we were going to bring back the spirit of nationalism across the Western Hemisphere, to re-educate, to re-inform policymakers, practitioners, researchers, advocates about the brutality of the occupation, the consequences of that occupation on the daily lives of our people. I did speak of the necessity for us to remain the ambassadors, the advocates for our own cause, not even to leave it in the hands of anyone else. That is why the Foreign Affairs Department of the Amazonian Governing Council in the last months has been delegating AGOVC missions to touch base with different stakeholders, actors, policymakers, to make sure we re-establish and re-energize the base of our struggle. 2 days ago, we had an important meeting at the European Commission. You'll get more details in the coming weeks, but the central focus of these diplomatic activities is to ensure that at least in the minimum, these institutions recognize the right of the Amazonian people to external self-determination. It's not only a fact of history, it's a fact of law. And I think we are, as a people, every people under international law, have a right to self-preservation. And it is very important because this position is also a pressure point on an enemy that has refused to negotiate the basis of this conflict and to terminate its occupation of Amazonia. We will escalate these representations into conferences, into demonstrations, public awareness campaign, so that we can work hand in hand, not only with our people on the ground, but with the actions of our forces to bring the kind of awareness, domestic and international pressure, especially at a time when we know for sure Cameroon is crumbling. Today, I also want to talk about the ban on bike riders. This is very important. The ban on bike riders in the state of Mezam. We have also learned the Colonial mayor of Bamenda is asking for bodyguards. I want to assure the Colonial mayor and others, bodyguards can protect you. Not even armor cars can protect you. The only thing that can protect any of you is if you abandon your impostor position in batting for an enemy that does not have the Amazonian people's interests at heart. The only thing that can protect you is to leave Amazonia and allow the Amazonian people to determine the kind of government that they want over their nation. For 60 years, Cameroon dismantled our economic infrastructures. It decimated the institutions and opportunities that gave Amazonians jobs, monies, which they could invest in education, healthcare, social services, recreation, and development. Big parastatals that existed as primary employers that created a vibrant private service that could also employ our people were all dismantled. Infrastructures that were important even for mobility were abandoned. The institutions that could cater for those infrastructures like our roads were dismantled. The caterpillars and all the vehicles looted and sold. Our roads are unpassable. They've become death traps for cars. Those who invest in public transport realize they don't make any profit. To make profit, they have to increase the amount that passengers pay, leaving passengers desperate. Yet the enemy taxation policies, the constant repairs, price hikes due to inflation and bad governance and looting and corruption has made even increase in transport fares not being able to still match the expenditures. Thousands of our young men who've had no chance have turned into bike riding to be able to have 2 square meals a day, to be able to give education to their children, to be able to keep a family together, to be able to provide to grandma or grandpa at least 1,000 amber, to be able to look after aunties, uncles, all the social and cultural activities that are part and parcel of our society. Because of the death trap roads, many of these drivers have fallen victims. They don't have the monies to buy a helmet. They have died. Passengers that have been carried on these bikes have ended up dead. This is the lot that the barbarians have brought into our land. Now, we got up one morning. The Colonial SDO for Mezam has imposed a ban on bike riders as from 6 p.m. every day until 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning. For what reason? The roads you don't fix. Other infrastructures connected to the roads you don't fix. You impose all sorts of taxes on these bike riders. Education for their children you don't provide. Health care for their families you don't provide. Your only role is to impose limitations on their survival. The survival of the Amazonian families depends to a great extent on the sacrifices that are made by these bike riders. They ferry our mothers and our dads and our sisters and our brothers from the farms to the markets because the roads cannot be used by vehicles. They are able to use all sorts of shortcuts to carry the sick, the wounded to distant hospitals. It is their sole source of survival. We are talking about an enemy scared of bikes because they think our forces use bikes. They ride our streets with armored cars. They ride our streets with all sorts of machineries of war. They fly our skies with drones, helicopters, and all sorts of airborne equipments of war. They are afraid of bikes. We don't need bikes to fight you. In 1996, when I was in Bayele for a meeting, our comrades left Bui on foot to Bamenda and walked back to Bui. They didn't need a bike. I walked from Kumbo into Ndu and back on foot. I didn't need a bike. Other comrades have gone to operations, dozens of kilometers on foot. We don't need a bike to fight you. So leave our citizens alone. You offer nothing since you entered our land. You've offered death, destruction, and hopelessness. Since coming into effect, we have monitored the activities of the oppressor. On day one, we realized there were a couple of bike riders who were harassed. On day two, there were a couple more bike riders who were harassed. 2 persons had their bikes seized. On day three, the enemy began to impound on bike riders and causing mayhem. Based on these activities, from Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024, as from 5 p.m. Amber time, all motor vehicles are banned from circulating within the state of Mezam. As from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next morning, all motor vehicles are banned from circulating within Mezam in solidarity with our bike riders. All for one, one for all. And I call on our population to rise up against these barbarians and force them to leave our land, to allow our children to engage in their activities, to allow us to rebuild our economy, rebuild our economic infrastructures, rebuild our society, and give hope to our people. We are also aware the enemy has recruited hundreds of bike riders who are stationed in strategic areas within Bamenda in particular. They are used to spy on our forces, on our population. We are watching. We don't have prison spaces for traitors. My fellow Amazonians, our struggle for freedom is real because the pain of the occupation is real. The suffering that our people are going through is not because of our resistance. It is because of the occupation. Without the occupation, there will be no resistance. The end of the occupation will mean an end of the resistance. And I call on all of our people to join their sons and daughters in resistance so we can shorten the lifespan of the occupation in our homeland. I also call on the international community to recognize the right of Amazonians to self-determination. That is the only powerful message that can be sent to Cameroon to understand it will not be business as usual. The resistance shall never be defeated. The occupation will come to an end as all other occupations across the globe. The tyranny that has been imposed over our land will meet its Waterloo as most other tyrannies that have deprived millions of their right to dignity came to an end. I ask each and every one of you to continue to pray for our people, to continue to support our forces, to continue to sacrifice for our country, and to remember what we do today will lay the foundation of how the children we have will act tomorrow. God bless Ambazonia.